Once upon a time, in a cozy little room filled with books and dreams, lived a curious girl named Lan. She loved stories more than anything, especially ones about heroes from long, long ago. One rainy afternoon, while exploring her grandfather's attic, she found a mysterious, ancient book. Its cover was made of old wood, and it seemed to hum with a gentle light. As Lan carefully opened it, a swirl of shimmering dust lifted from the pages, and a warm, kind voice filled the air. "Hello, Lan. Would you like to see a story? A true story of great faith and a mighty ship." Before Lan could answer, the room dissolved into a kaleidoscope of colors. She felt like she was flying through a tunnel of light and stars. When the spinning stopped, she wasn't in her grandfather's attic anymore. She was standing on a grassy hill, overlooking a bustling town from ancient times. The air smelled of wood smoke and fresh bread. Lan could see people working, laughing, and living their lives. The voice from the book whispered, "This is the time of a good and patient man named Noah." Lan saw Noah, a man with a kind face and a warm smile. He spoke to his people with love, reminding them to be good to each other and to remember the one God who created everything: the sun, the moon, the stars, and all of them. But the people wouldn't listen. They laughed and turned away, preferring to worship idols made of stone and wood that couldn't see or hear. Noah never gave up. For years and years, he gently tried to guide them, his heart full of hope. He was patient, just like a gardener waiting for a tiny seed to grow. One day, God spoke to Noah. He told him that a great flood would come to wash the world clean, a flood so big it would cover the highest mountains. But God, in his infinite mercy, promised to save Noah, his family, and all the believers. He gave Noah a very special, very big task: build a huge boat. God commanded. An ark. Build it strong and tall, exactly as I tell you. Noah listened carefully, his heart filled with trust. He knew this was a way to save those who believed. So Noah and his family began their work. They went into the forest to chop down the tallest, strongest trees. Asterisk swish, thud, swish, thud, asterisk went their axes. It was hard work under the hot sun. The other townspeople gathered to watch. "Look at Noah," they mocked. "He's building a giant boat on dry land, far from any sea. Has he gone mad?" They pointed and laughed, but Noah paid them no mind. He kept his eyes on his work, his hands busy with his tools, and his heart focused on God's promise. He hammered and sawed day after day, his faith stronger than any nail. Lan watched in awe as the ark began to take shape. It wasn't just a boat. It was enormous, bigger than any building she had ever seen. It had 3 levels, a huge roof, and countless rooms inside. Noah, his sons, and the few who believed worked together, their hands covered in sawdust and their faces gleaming with determination. They were a team, united by their faith. Lan realized that building the ark wasn't just about wood and nails. It was about building hope and trusting in a plan bigger than anything they could see. Then, the most wonderful and peculiar thing began to happen. From the forests, the jungles, and the plains, animals started to arrive. They came not in a stampede, but in a calm, orderly line. 2 lions, a male and a female, walked side by side. 2 tall giraffes bowed their heads to enter the ark's giant door. 2 tiny hummingbirds zipped through the air. Big and small, scaly and furry, they all came to buy too. Lan's eyes widened with wonder. It was a peaceful parade of all of God's creatures, guided to the safety of the ark. There was no roaring or fighting, only a quiet understanding. They were all part of the great rescue plan. As the last pair of animals boarded, Noah, his family, and the small group of believers followed them inside. With a heavy heart, Noah looked back one last time at the town and the people he had tried so hard to guide. Then, with a great heave, he closed the massive door. Asterisk creak, thud, asterisk inside. It was quiet. The only light came from the windows high above. They were safe inside, floating on a sea of faith, waiting for God's promise to unfold. Outside, the sky began to change. The bright sun disappeared behind dark, heavy clouds that swirled like a gray blanket. A single drop of rain fell, then another and another. Soon, the drops turned into a downpour. The rain fell harder and faster than anyone had ever seen. The sound was like 1,000 drums beating on the roof of the ark. Layan watched as little puddles turned into streams, streams turned into rivers, and rivers turned into a raging ocean. Water also gushed up from the ground, and the whole world began to disappear beneath the rising waves. The ark, once sitting on dry land, began to rock and sway. It lifted off the ground and began to float. The people who had laughed were now filled with fear, but it was too late. The waves grew into mountains of water, tossing the mighty ark around like a toy. Inside, Noah and the believers prayed. They weren't afraid because they knew God was with them, protecting them. Layan felt the rocking of the great ship and understood the power of the storm, but she also felt the powerful peace that came from trusting in God's plan. For 40 days and 40 nights, the rain fell without stopping. The water covered everything, the houses, the trees, and even the tallest mountains. The entire world was a vast, endless ocean. The ark was the only thing left, a tiny speck of hope sailing on the water. It was a time of waiting and patience. Inside the ark, Noah and his family cared for the animals, ensuring every creature was fed and safe. They lived together in harmony, a small community floating above a submerged world, holding on to the promise of a new beginning. Finally, the rain stopped, the clouds slowly began to part, and the sun's warm rays shone down on the water. Noah sent out a raven to see if it could find dry land, but it returned. Later, he sent out a dove. It came back. He waited 7 more days and sent the dove out again. This time, it returned with a fresh olive leaf in its beak, a sign that the water was going down and new life was beginning to grow. Joy and relief filled the ark. Their long journey was almost over. After a few more weeks, the ark gently came to rest on the top of a mountain named Judy. God spoke to Noah once more. Go out of the ark, you and your family, and every living thing with you. Let them multiply on the earth. The great door was opened, and a stream of sunlight flooded the inside. One by one, Noah, his family, and all the animals stepped out onto the fresh, clean earth. They took their first breaths of the new world's air. The birds sang, the lions stretched, and the butterflies danced in the sunlight. As they looked up at the sky, a magnificent sight appeared. A beautiful arc of brilliant colors stretched across the heavens: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. It was a rainbow, a sign from God. It was his promise that he would never again flood the entire earth. It was a symbol of mercy, hope, and new beginnings. Noah and his family knelt and thanked God for his protection and his love. As Layan watched the rainbow's vibrant colors, she felt a gentle pull. The beautiful scene began to fade, and the swirling colors returned. In a blink, she was back in her grandfather's attic, the ancient book resting in her lap. The rain had stopped outside, and a real rainbow was arching across the sky, just like the one in the story. Layan smiled. She had not just read a story. She had lived it. She learned that faith is like an anchor in a storm, that patience is a strength, and that kindness to all of God's creation is so important. And she knew that after every storm, there is always the promise of a rainbow. Thank you for joining Layan on her incredible journey. We hope you enjoyed the story of Noah and his amazing ark. If you want to go on more adventures through time and learn more wonderful stories, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. See you next time.